G, bringing stars and stories, it's where you wanna be. From celebs to entrepreneurs, she's got the scoop. Community and entertainment, she's in the loop. Every smile a burst of velvet light. Through the screen she shines so bright, with the laughs and tales that weave tonight.
Well, welcome to another episode of SKST Radio, and you tuned into the Cammie Grayson Show, and I'm Cammie Grayson, and I have, I don't know how to describe this guy here. He is my first cousin,
right?
But he's also like my brother cousin, but he's also the Reverend Dr. Donald Wilson Jr., my first cousin. Don, welcome to the show.
Thank you for welcoming me. Fantastic to be here.
Well, I am so glad you're here. Man, let me tell you something. This interview is way past due. I mean, way. Did I say way? Way past due.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It is way past due.
Oh, my goodness. So, but you know what? I'm so happy to have you. I'm so happy to have you in my life. I'm so happy that you are, just the bomb.com. I'm just like, first of all, guys, if you don't know, you catch his show on SKST Radio. Now, let me take it back a step or two. When I first started SKST Radio in 2009, the Eagles Perch was there. So my cousin has been supporting my business all these years. I am so grateful to have a family member, because people don't really get family members that support them like this. And I've had this family member, Don, him and his wife, Rebecca, have been there since 2009 doing SKST Radio. Dude, do it seem like it's that long?
You know what? I was thinking about that this morning, because I was thinking about when you were here. We used to come into the studio and we used to, just kind of just like vibe and talk. And we did from the Eagles Perch from the studio. That was a long time ago. And
that was.
Yeah, I didn't have all this gray hair then either. So,
Yeah, I didn't have these extra pounds either.
It's been a minute. But
yes, it has.
We've been blessed. I think from the time that we were growing up till now, we've been blessed to stay in contact and be a part of each other's lives. I think God has just arranged where we were, and I'm grateful for our grandparents, because they kept us together. They were like glue that stuck us together. Yes. And they weren't perfect. Now, don't ever get me wrong on that.
Right.
But they made sure that we knew each other. And that we became a part of each other's lives. Now, not everybody's, that glue didn't work for everybody, but it worked for some of us. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do right now.
All right. Let me see if I can go to what I'm most proud of. I am the pastor of Monterey Missionary Baptist Church, which is located in Fort Worth, Texas. I also work for General Motors here in Arlington, Texas. I basically, I work in the materials area, but what God has blessed me with is a awesome church. It is, how can I say it? It's a church where the discipline and the thought that God would have for it, it is meant to be there. We are a church that truly cares about your soul. We are a church that does everything that God says do. We're going to walk that path always. We follow the word. We preach the word. We don't give you our opinion. We just say it's what thus says the Lord. And that's the way it should be. Every church should be set up to only deliver God's word, and just God's word, not your opinion, but what thus says the Lord.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited. I don't know if anybody could tell that. I'm more excited for this interview. As Kim said, it's been a long time coming. I'm excited for a lot of different ways, because my cousin has been, she's been an awesome inspiration. It comes times when we both need to talk to each other. and we just inspire and encourage each other to keep on moving in higher ground. Uh, I think that the one thing that most people don't really know about me is that I have a doctorate in Black historical sciences, and I teach Black history. And it is an intriguing history of our people. It doesn't begin with slavery. Civil rights is not the only thing that we could talk about. Our history is deeper than anyone's history upon this earth. We could go back to the time of biblical history and relate our history back to that time frame. So when we start talking about Black history, we're talking about a history of a people. And a lot of people don't know that whole history. They only know what is being taught here and what is being implemented here in America and being said about America. Most people, they know Dr. Martin Luther King, they don't know anybody else. See, you don't know that we have a scientist that was here that's from New Orleans that discovered how to process sugar, and his name is Rios. But they don't know that it was a cook that was here that made the first potato chips. There was a Black man who actually made that particular invention by mistake, because what happened was he had a person who was complaining about the potatoes that were being cooked in the restaurant in which he was, and then he went and sliced them real thin and put them in grease, and that was the invention of the potato chip. A lot of us don't really understand that and know that. Uh, we don't really know our history. We don't know about the inventors. We don't know about those that came and all of the things that they've invented. But if I tell you that there will be no convenience in America if it had not been for our people with the hot comb, the ironing board, the telephone, the light, the computer, the cell phone, the air conditioner, the what we call central air and heat, what we call the light bulb filament. We don't even realize that the effect and the impact that we had upon American life, and not only American life, but you think about what we've done all around the world. Do you not know that they wouldn't have been able to send a flight into space if it hadn't have been for 10 Black women that were used
Yeah,
as human supercomputers to
yeah,
be able to track and find out how to did we may be able to launch a ship into space? It took them to be able to track those numbers, and they made a film for that called Hidden Numbers.
yeah,
Because of those Black women, they were able to start the NASA program. A lot of us don't realize how deep that history goes. We don't realize of how deep the church's history goes in American history, because the church has always been there. The church has always been a factor in how that history goes and how it's partaken. The church has always been. A lot of us don't even realize that we as a people, when we were slaves, went to church and the master kept guards at the church. They don't realize that when we raise that one finger up and you see people walk up out of the church, that's because they
yeah,
used to do that in order not to lose their lives when they had to go relieve themselves or something else within the church. They would raise their hand so that the master would know that they were leaving.
You see,
And
and I never knew that. That
yeah,
is crazy because I always thought it was just, Christian etiquette. When we
hmm
have to go to be excused, I thought that was our please excuse us thing,
yeah.
for the
That,
pastor.
that happened because of the slavery incident. A lot of people do
Wow.
not understand. I hear people all the time, they talk about slave life, and they wouldn't have wanted to be in the master's house because those slaves were different from the field slaves. But can I tell you a little secret? If it hadn't have been for the slaves that were in the house, the field slaves would still be struggling, because those slaves that were in the house learned how to read, write, and all of the other things that were necessary. You had to have a letter that showed that you were a freed man in order to be able to travel. And a lot of slaves escaped that way because those slaves that were in the house wrote them letters, because they normally wrote
Wow.
the letters for the master in order for them to be able to travel. So they wrote letters that showed that they were traveling, and a lot of people were freed that way. We don't understand that because we think that there was a difference between them. There was. They were treated differently, but they were normally spies. Do you not know that during the Civil War that there was a young lady that stayed in the master's house, and what she did was is everything that they talked about doing, she would relay it back to others that were able to take that information to Union soldiers so that they would be able to cut the lines off so that the Southern armies wouldn't be able to move. Those people took risks because they were in the house. And if they got caught, they were dead. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they took risks. We don't know the story of the Underground Railroad. A lot of us get lost because we think that, the Underground Railroad was Quakers. The only thing we know about is Harriet Tubman. We don't know about the young lady that was called Pistol Pete, who carried 2 pistols. They were literally, she never lost anybody off her route. And she literally would use that gun if she had to, because she didn't want anybody to stop her from getting her slaves up to free land. We don't know about James O'Shea. We don't know about Henry Box Brown. All we know about Henry Box Brown is that he mailed himself to Philadelphia in a box, But we don't know that he came back over 23 times to take others back on to the other side. We never heard about James Stewart O. We never heard about Phyllis Wiley. We never heard about those people because we don't know the Underground Railroad. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So those people existed that we might be able to be free. And the Underground Railroad was way more complicated than what we thought it was. They had houses and places and churches and businesses, and it was a complex line to travel. And we don't know because we continue to think that these people didn't exist or these people didn't do anything that was significant. They did things. They risked their lives to go back for people when they had bounties on their head. A lot of us don't know about Henry Weaver. And I tell people, when you think of the story of Henry Weaver, you got to think of somebody that was never, ever caught. He got caught as far as we think of being caught. Like they caught him as he was coming back, and they would look like they were going to hang him, and he would talk his way out of anything. He had what people said was a golden tongue. Master, if you don't hang me, I'll work harder than the rest of the slaves on the plantation. Master, if you don't hang me, I'll tell you where the Underground Railroad is here. Master, if you don't hang me. And they would take him back every time. And every time he needed to, he would take slaves with him right up out of there and head back north. Every time. He got caught more than 24 times, but he talked his way out of it. And he never lost a traveler with him. And the thing about Henry Weaver is the story goes, they tell the story about Henry not being able to sing. He was terrible at singing, but he's the one who had the song that went with him as he would start singing Swaying Low, and they would be telling him, "Oh, you sound so horrible." But the slaves that were listening to him would travel with him because when they heard Henry, they knew that he was moving.
Okay.
He couldn't sing, but they knew he was moving, and Henry would travel, and he would just keep traveling. I think it was one of the stories where they were in the evening, and he was on the plantation, and they would send in the back, and they were watching him, and Henry said, "Myself, I want to just work just a little bit longer," and he kept about 7 or 8 slaves with him. They worked just a little bit longer, and when the sun started going down, they moved through the fields and went out the back way, And while the master was waiting on them to come back, you could hear Henry singing, and he was singing Swing Low, and the master was listening, but they were going out the back. Went through the swamp, came out on the other side. They literally escaped to freedom. And the thing about Henry Weaver is he didn't lose his life as he was bringing someone back. He lost his life saving someone, to save their lives. Or one of his last journeys, he lost his life saving someone. So when you hear those stories and you start to understand the Underground Railroad conductors, and you think, some people say, well, our history started doing slavery. Well, you don't really know our history. So you don't know the history of the Cushite kings, and you don't know the history of the Ashanti people, and you don't know the history of the Yashimbek. You don't know the history of Iman Fo. You don't know the history of Queen Somalia. You don't know them because these queens were awesome. When Alexander the Great came and thought he was going to destroy them, they destroyed his armies. They beat them down and kept their places free. When you start discovering about these queens and these kings that they went up to fight against, then you start saying, man, these people were powerful, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well, so when I was doing the song, when I was doing the song of Kush for a local movie producer, I mean, you were my resource. You know, I was able to call you because I wanted to write the lyrics to match what really, really happened. And so to know the history of Kush, in which I really hope this guy get this show, this movie up and going, because we really need this movie. I mean, not just because my song is going to be on it, but because it's like for real history. And so, Dom, say a little bit about Kush. Just tell them a little bit about that.
All right. What people don't really realize about Kush is you have to understand something. The Bible speaks of the kingdom of Kush. Kush and the Egyptians and the Kushites were cousins of particular people. So here's my question to you. If the Egyptians and the people of Kush were cousins, what do you think the people of Egypt look like? Because the
like
people of Kush look just like us. So in order for them to have any familial basis, they would have to look alike, right?
Right.
There were over 17 Kushite kings that sit on the throne of Egypt. Did you know that? Over 17 Kushite kings sit on the throne of Egypt. They conquered each other back and forth. So when you start finding that out, if you go into that history and you tally the Egyptian history, you'll find out that Moses was one of the generals that fought the Kushite armies. You'll find out that Kush was a kingdom that was so overpowering that they actually fought and defeated Egypt. That the people around them, they were scared of the Kushites because of their power and their strength. Our history tells us that Noah had sons. Ham was one of those sons, and Ham's descendants were the Kushites. Did you know that? That was one of his descendants, was a Kushite. His son was named Cush. So when you start looking at the kingdom of Cush, you understand that they're descendants of Ham. They're Hamitic in their blood. So when you think of this, their cousins being the Egyptians, that was another son who was called Put. You get what I'm saying?
Wow.
So when you start placing this history all together, you start learning about the Kushites, you start learning that they already had stuff in place before anybody ever thought about them. They were mathematicians. There's the city of Sonraye. There was an a university, Timbuktu, a university in a Kushite kingdom. They already had archaeology. They already had astrology. They already had mathematics. They already had medicine. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They already had these things. Before any European experience ever came along, they were already had these things. They had a calendar that was so tight, it kept things to the utmost. They had a way of being able to tell time that kept it down to the actual instant. They had already had a civilization that was moved and vocal and acted and voted. You don't know the stuff that we put together now was stuff that they already had developed. They knew how to do things. The story goes
that. Where do you think they got their smarts from? What do you think? I mean, because I'm so fascinated with Egyptians that it just blows me away that they were so modern. They had so many modern things. So where do you think that came from?
Well, really, when you really think about this, these are descendants of Noah, and who is a descendant of Abraham himself. You got to understand that all of their knowledge, all of their understanding came from God himself. Even though you find out that when you look at the Egyptians, they worship another god, that means their people actually strayed away from what Abraham was taught. Then they start worshiping the god of the sun, which is called Ra, and all of those different gods. You had the Cushites that basically they worship Ra at one point in time. But what you find out when you start going into our biblical history, you'll find out that they start worshiping a god called Yahweh. And that is the God that we so worship. Mm-hmm. Because that is the Hebrew language for the word God. You get what I'm saying? And you'll start learning that the Cushites were stronger than anything that we could really believe. And in the land of Cush, everybody does not understand this. When you start talking about where Jacob was and all of his sons, they were in the land of Cush. That's where they were living before they came into Egypt. You get what I'm saying? A lot of us don't even understand that. We look at Cush, we say, oh yeah, that was just a little bit of kingdom. No, they weren't. They were vast and strong and built up. They had armies. They had sailors. A lot of people will tell you right now, if you really look into the history, they had already been to the Americas long before Columbus and any other explorer had been here. They had already been here. They had settlements that were already here. When we look at the Indians of that day, we'll find out that they had a mixed breed of people already there that looked like us.
Yeah.
Black Seminoles is what we call them. They were part. They had been there. They meditated. They had intertwined. They became those people. They became the indigenous people that were already in the United States before we had the colonies to settle. They had already been there. When we start talking about South America, you really want to know the influence that those people had? Look at the pyramids that were already built in the lower parts of Mexico and South America. They resemble the pyramids that are built in Egypt. Go look at the House of Sun that is in Brazil. You'll find out that it looks just like a city that exists called Sunrise, the universal city that I was telling you about. Sunrise. It looks like a carbon copy of Sunrise. You get what I'm saying? They had already been here. They already knew the lay of the land. They had already sailed the seas. They had already done things. They had fought the Vikings, and we didn't even know that until we started delving into the history of those people. You know, so when we start talking about that, those Cushite kingdoms that people talk about, one of them is Phoenician. You get what I'm saying? One part of that kingdom was Phoenicia. One part of that kingdom was people that we call Magi and all of these different things. Do you not know that it is the same Hamitic people that battled and fought in Spain and conquered? These same Hamitic people that went about. You remember the story of Hannibal? You'll find out that Hannibal basically almost ransacked Europe as he was coming through, going to battle, through all of his defeats and all of the things that he did to win battles and all these things, riding in on elephants and things of that nature. If you know the story of Hannibal, you remember that he was conquering Europe, defeating it. And the only thing that really kept Hannibal from continuing and beating and really conquering and completing his mission was that the person that was supposed to meet him up didn't make it because of the winter. As they were going another direction, coming through and around near Russia. They didn't make it to them. Think about that. If they ever had, what would Europe be like now? We already seen what the Italians and what the Spaniards do. When they look, you see our history all over that place. You see our history because we had kings that sat on their thrones. You know? So when people look at that and they say, man, I wonder what those people were like. You really want to know what they were like? They were explorers. They were kings. They were queens. They were warriors. They conquered. They did all kinds of things. When you start thinking about the things that they didn't just sit back on their laurels. They did things that was what some people called impossible. I think I was talking to a friend of mine and I told him, you really want to know why we keep saying our people? Look at the things that they have done, because you'll find influence of them all over the world. At one point in time, we know that even in Japan, there were black people that were there because we can find evidence of them. They intermixed with races there. They became part of that culture. We can go and look at earlier samurais and we can see ourselves. All right.
Right.
If we go into Europe, we already know what Spain looked like. We already know that the Italians didn't like us because of what Italy looked like at one point in time. You know, the conquering that was done. We already know that Turkey at one point in time had us there. We had already taken and had a footnote there. We know at one point in time, because of the places that are mentioned in the Bible, that we were there.
Wow.
Our footprint was already there. We know, for without a shadow of a doubt, that we came into the Americas long before any of those other explorers got here. You could see
Right.
pictures in times that we were, and the things that the indigenous people showed, and the paintings that were done. We were here. We stepped on this ground long before they ever had that opportunity. We were
Wow.
moving.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll
All
be
right.
back. We're going to learn a little bit more about this Black history because, man, shortest month of the year, and we get that. So we're going to enjoy the little short month that we do have and learn something about what we had.
Oh
So
yeah.
hang tight. We'll be back after these messages.
All right.
Well, thanks for giving, thanks for love, shining light from heaven above. We lift each voice, we rise and sing for the joy this season brings. Coming grace and show, it's time to shine. Hope and healing, stories divine. Tune in now, let your spirit glow. Thanks for giving, let the whole world know.
Well, if you just tuned in, you haven't tuned in too late. You tuned in to the Cammie Grayson Show. And man, let me tell you, we're learning about Black history from historian Dr. Reverend Donald Wilson Jr. He is also has a show here on SKST Radio, all the way from Fort Worth, Texas.
Yeah.
Dr. Don, come on, give us some more. Hit us with some more stuff that we don't know.
Well, you were asking me about the Kushites, but you have to remember we were all over Africa. You had Mesopotamia, you had all of the lands. If you really look at the rivers that were stated to surround the blessed land that Adam was in, you'll find out that all those rivers fall within African domain. We know that as a people have tried to split up where Africa really is, and we always hear about them say that right now that these people are sitting here, they're sitting there, or they're in this land, but they're in Africa. They're a country on the inside of Africa. Iran, a country on the inside of Africa. When we start looking at these places, we then start understanding that these people at one point in time look like us. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They are descendants of people around and in that area. In this world, what we find out is that we are the only people that really don't know our history. We're the only people that have no idea of who we really are or what we're really all about. I think I've said it before. We have no idea.
Why do you think that, though, Dr. Don? Why do you think that? Do you think they're
some
embarrassed behind their background, or they just don't care, or they say Black people don't read? Is that part of it?
Well, I think some of it is miseducation. It's not taught in our schools, so we don't factor in that it's not an educational piece that's taken care of in our schools. The other part is when the older people were trying to tell us history, we didn't want to hear it, because all we heard about was slavery. Then that's where we thought our history came from. A lot of us, you hear people say, well, I don't want to think about what happened in the past. I'm just living for today. Well, if you don't know your past, you don't know where you're going. The true part about history and what is a biblical principle is is if you don't know where you've been, you'll never know where you're going. So we have to learn who we are or who we were in order to know who we really are and what we are going to become. If we don't know our history, sooner or later somebody can change it. And we find ourselves locked out and thinking that we're nothing and nobody. A lot of us don't realize that some of the kings that sat up on the throne in England were us. We don't realize that when we go to Ireland, those people that they were calling leprechauns were actually pygmy people. And guess what? They were black. We don't understand that or know that. We don't understand that when we go out to all these different places, the theory where we thought the cartoon was really funny on Bugs Bunny, where they said the Tasmanian devil, and they were talking about the Tasmanian devil and how it comes in and tears up everything. A lot of us don't even realize that the Tasmanian devil, where they got that from, was from the people of Tasmania. The people of Tasmania were black, short pygmies. You get what I'm saying? So we don't even get that the fact that they're making fun of us, you know, and they calling it the Tasmanian devil, but at the same time they're talking about our people, you know. Um, we just have no idea because we don't think our history is that deep. And a lot of us don't realize we come from kings and queens. Those people that were stolen from Africa, they came from tribes that were very rich in their heritage, and people knew everything about them. The reason when they brought slaves over, they took that stuff away from them. They beat it out of a lot of people to take that away. They didn't want them speaking their own language. They didn't want them telling their history. They didn't want them telling their stories. Now, slaves got away with it because they did tell the stories of their people. They did it at night. They did it in encampments. They did it when they were singing songs. I think we have no idea that some of the spiritual songs that they sung at that time were actually what we call when you look at the people that ran the Underground Railroad, they were staging songs or getting away songs. You know, Down by the River, that's a song that tells you where to get to so that you might be able to get free. Swing Free Chariot, that talked about the train that was going to take you away. When they had signal songs, as we call them, and there were quite a few, but each of the Underground Railroad conductors had a different signal song. A lot of us didn't even know that. We had no idea. How did people know who they were? They sang their signal song. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People heard that, and they knew that that was their time to get on the train. I think there was a song called "This Train." You know, you heard "Going Down Moses," right? You heard those songs because they were signal songs. They were the songs that told the slaves the train is taking off. You know, so when you start talking to people and you start learning things and you start listening to the people that got to Canada and got themselves free, and they were telling the stories of their forefathers and their parents and how they got to what they called a freedom land. You know, you hear the stories of the people that got up north, and when they got north, they start coming back so that they can save their families and things of that nature. A lot of us have no idea. We look at the cotton gin, we don't even know who that's invented by, but it was a black man. You know, I told you about sugar processing. That was Norman Rillios. He discovered how to do that, and they didn't even want to give him credit for it. In fact, they gave others credit for it. Even though he founded the process, they tried to write him out of history by giving the credit to other people. We don't even realize that the people who rode the earliest stagecoaches that drove those coaches from the east to the west were black people. Stagecoach Mary. We don't even realize that she rode a stagecoach. She carried the U.S. mail. She was famous for that. She had several guns, and she never lost was late on her mail. We look at things, and we look at Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo at one point in time, that was a carrier. They not only carried for the bank, but they carried for a system of getting things in different places. And a lot of the people that took on that work were black people. How we watched this movie, The Harder They Fall. Do you not know that every character that they used was actually a real person? It was a
Really?
real person from our history. Every character they used at some point in time existed. They didn't all exist together, but at some point in time in history, they existed. Nat Love, famous gunfighter. We don't realize that they had different names for Nat Love. They call him Dead Eye Dick. They call him the Deadwood Killer. He is the man. John Wesley Hardin was probably one of the most famous gunslingers in the West, and he actually outdrew John Wesley Hardin and killed him in the city of Deadwood. We don't even realize that those were real people. They were cowboys, and we don't know that they had black cowboys. We never even thought
Yeah,
about
I was about to say that. A lot of people didn't even know that we had
it.
black cowboys at
Yeah.
all. They just thought there was a fad going on
Yeah.
with the boots and all that, but no, it was real cowboys.
Yeah, all those people existed. At one point in time, they all exist. When we start hearing of the stories of about the Lone Ranger, you remember they showed the Lone Ranger, High Ho Silver, and all that stuff? That's based on a black man who
See, now I did not know
lost a president. He always got his man. That was based on a black man. The whole getup, the white horse, all of that. He was one of the first Black Rangers, and I'm sorry, his name actually skips my mind at the moment. I'm trying to tell you a lot about their history, but he is, and they made a movie about him, and I think that movie is called Hotter Than Hell. It is a movie about him and his exploits and the things they did, and they made a couple of series about him because of what he did and what he was able to do. He was the one who the Lone Ranger was actually based on, all the way down to Tonto and all of that. Now you have to remember something: Indians didn't prefer white people at that point in time. I'm sorry, just to say it that way. They did not. They didn't trust them, but they trusted us. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it.
So at this point in time, we had a lot. A lot of us don't even know about Buffalo Soldiers. We have no idea who the Buffalo Soldiers really were. But let me give you a piece of that history also, because when you start looking at the Buffalo Soldiers themselves, their original intent was to go in and capture the Indian territory, to go into battles with the Indians. That's what the Buffalo Soldiers' real intent was. But then there came a time where we had the Mexican-American War and all that. And do you remember when they were talking about Teddy Roosevelt going up San Juan Hill, and he went up with the soldiers that he had in the beginning, and they were beaten? No. And the next time that he came, he brought a troop of, they call it Negro soldiers, but they were black soldiers that went back with him the second time, and they won the Battle of San Juan.
Wow.
Though we don't really know that history. We don't really subject it. When they had the battle in World War I, I believe it was World War I, and in World War II, where they were in the winter in the snow, they would use and try to use the Caucasian soldiers to go across the snow, but they would end up getting picked off every time. But for some reason, when they used the African American soldier, they wouldn't get picked off. They never saw them coming in the snow. A lot of people don't even know about that. Wow. These soldiers were so tough. When we start thinking about our heroics, a lot of us don't even realize the things that were happening or went on. We don't even realize that the Tuskegee Airmen, they never lost a battle. They always completed their mission. And they didn't lose many fighters. Wow. Now, they lost some, but they didn't lose many. You get what I'm saying? And they were people that they did not want to fight. They didn't want them to go into flight school. They didn't want them to be progressive. They said they could do it without them, but they always protected them. Got to the point where ships were actually saying, "We'll do it, but you got to send the Red Tails, the Tuskegee Airmen, with us." You know, you got to send them with us. Yeah, we'll do it, but you got to send them. You know, so. When you hear the exploits, do you not remember the exploits at Pearl Harbor, or a black man who had been a kitchen mate, he had never really operated a gun. As they were being attacked, he got on the ship and he shot down aircraft. And he was a hero at that time. what we don't realize is the exploits that we had in heroism, the exploits that we had in all of the things. People have talked about the person who went up and was the first one to plant a flag up on the North Pole. You give him credit, but then you forget about Matthew Henson because he was
Right.
literally the first man to ever touch the North Pole. We forget about him.
Well, so let's speed it up to today's time,
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Wilson. Let's speed it up to today's time. So we have witnessed a historical moment by having an African American president, a black president. And
That's interesting. I'm
what do you
gonna hit
think?
you with that.
Huh?
I'm gonna hit you with that in a few minutes.
Yeah. So the people now are looking back to him because of what's going on, right? You know, he
Right.
served his term, and he is pretty much stepped down, right? So now I see, on social media, there are a lot of comparison, right?
Right.
Our current is trying to compare to, or appear to trying to compare themselves to our Black history um, presidential election person, elected person. So,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think the outcome can come now, because he's already served his 2 terms, so we can't get him back as president.
Well,
So, what do you think? How do you think that's going to look in the books?
well, here's a very interesting point that people are exploring. Our current president is trying to reverse the third term issue of moratorium. A lot of people don't realize that the reason that presidents can't serve more than 2 terms is because of another president that actually served 4, and that's Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And because he did that, this United States didn't want anybody to be able to monopolize their state as a president. So they cut it and stopped it at 2 terms. Our current president wants to take it further so that he could stay in office. Here's the problem. If you do that, you open it up. You open it up for Obama to go again. You open it up for Clinton. He's still alive. You get what I'm saying?
Hmm.
All right. And he doesn't want to do that because he wants to make sure they don't have the opportunity. Everything that is being done today is very interesting to me because you hear from the mouth of the leader about the people or persons before him, and he steadily talks about the birthers clause and birthers right. Really, Obama was born in Hawaii, and he was born in Russia, who has the greatest
Hmm.
claim to being an American. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Um, you don't want to you don't want that to happen, and you don't really want to attack. The one thing I see right now is he's currently trying to put his name on all of the greatest things that were built. The Kennedy Center. He wants to have his name on the Smithsonian. He's already destroyed and implemented building on the White House and the East Wing, what supposed to be a wing that none of the presidents before him would touch because of its historical nature. Uh,
Right.
you see a lot of things, and this current regime, you see an attack on all of the things that were achieved by those who fought in the civil rights. It's an attack on voters' rights. It's an attack on, they say, DEI, which is part of the civil rights that were obtained, the ability to at least have an opportunity to be interviewed. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
now he's got that attack going, and when the universities wouldn't agree with him, he threatened to take money away from them. You know, uh, all of these things that are happening, all of these things that are coming to part, you're looking at it from a way that this is the part that people are not really watching. Make America great again is not make all Americans great again. Is to make a certain specific people great again.
Yeah.
Change things back to the way they were. That's what make America great again means. Get things back to where they were. Get people to where they were. They're actually having people and claim that there was reverse racism done in the workplace. reverse this and reverse that. Do you know how far that puts back all of those things that we fought for in the civil rights movement?
Yeah.
You see
Yeah.
all of these things happening, and we see a people that is really not paying attention because they did this after the people that are my age got older. You get what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because you couldn't do it before then because those people would stand up and fight. Now you have a younger generation that thinks that they're deserving of certain things or they have certain things and they're not looking at the rights away from them.
Right. And, and
Uh,
and they probably don't even care. It goes back to that.
but they got a lot of, they
Considerate
got
to the whole
certain things
situation.
distracting them. They're being distracted by other things. Some of them are being distracted by their everybody wants to be have a music career. Some of them are being distracted. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Some of them are being distracted because they don't see that they've taken away trades away from us. There were trades, plumbing, electrical, uh, air conditioning. Those were trades, and they're so looked down upon now by our people that people are stealing those from us. You know how why our parents and our grandparents and those people were so successful? They took on skilled trades. They learned those things so that they
Yeah.
would always be able to feed their families. They learned
Right.
trades like being a butcher, trades like being a plumber, trades like being electrician, trades that kept their families fed. There were, if you really look back at the integrity of the black family, you'll find out there were men who held 3 and 4 positions so that they could feed their family. One job wouldn't do it. You know, they yes, they had farms, but they went out and they worked in skilled trades, some type of trade. They were worked in construction. They worked in putting in flooring cement. They had a trade. You don't see that today. It's looked down upon. Why do I need that? That's something that somebody didn't go to school need. But let me give you a little hip to your story. Not everybody that goes to college is going to be successful in the field they chose. They're going to have to be
Right.
able to fall back on something. That's why those trades were there to give us the something to be able to fall back on, something to learn and always have with you. You get you a trade certificate, you will always be able to make money. That's what the CDL was. The gave us the truck driving experience. That was something
Mhm.
to fall back on. It didn't mean that everybody that educated they had to drive a truck. No, it just meant that I have an opportunity in case I can't do this anymore.
Right.
You know,
Right.
you had a trade. That was something that's real important, and it's even more important today that you have something to fall back on. Sometimes you're not going to be successful in your field. You got to have something to go back to. You got to have something to
Right.
fall back on that becomes something that'll take care of your family. Today's generation is so itchy or twitchy that they don't think of the longevity of things. They only think of the things as a short, sweet moment. They're the microwave generation, as we call them.
Yeah. I'm living
It-
for today. Forget
yeah,
about tomorrow.
well,
You know.
I'm a microwave. What I don't get, what I don't get today, is not. I'm not going to be satisfied with it. They see it as I want some self gratification today. It needs to happen
Yeah.
today. They don't realize there will be a tomorrow. That time is coming, and if you don't prepare for it, you'll be left out in the cold. I think it was told to me that Black America right now produces in shopping sales. They have the largest shopping sales. They go out and spend billions of dollars shopping.
Yeah.
All right. But they don't own anything. Is that scary to you? Because that's scary to me.
That's real scary. That's real scary because
Because
you're putting money
yeah,
in other people's pocket
if you
and you're
traded
building
within your
that
neighborhood,
ecosystem
right?
opposed to building your own.
The thing is, we used to have mom and pop stores all throughout the Black communities. There were clothing
Yeah.
stores, there were butcher shops, there were shoe stands, and the people that own those things. You had grocery stores. You had now, if you go into a grocery store in a neighborhood, you're not going to see us in the store. You get what I'm saying? We're not
Yeah.
going to own it. There are no more mom and pop anythings. The children have either sold it or they lost it. It's just like property. Our parents and our grandparents knew that property was king. They knew it, and they tried to convey that to us. Own your own property. What we failed to realize is that if you own your own property, nobody can take that away from you. You get
Right.
what I'm saying? So,
You know, it's so funny. I thought about Nanny, our grandmother.
mhm,
I remember when I got my first apartment, she gave me that big old mirror, the circle mirror. That
mhm,
I believe that was Mama Lena's mirror,
yeah,
and she gave me that bedroom suit, and that
mhm,
big circle mirror was like old and ugly to me. I appreciated it, but it was, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't,
mhm.
you know, I wanted
It
modern
wasn't
stuff,
something
right?
that it wasn't something you wanted. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, it was, you know, I didn't take the value of it. And I
Mhm,
remember her being so hurt when I got rid of it.
yeah.
She was so hurt. She said that was an antique mirror.
And if you held on to it,
Well, she said dresser. She said it was an
mm,
antique dresser.
right,
And she
if you
said if you
just
didn't want
held
it, you could have
on
gave
to
it
it,
back to us. And
you,
I did not know, you know,
mhm,
because she never told, you know, she never really, I mean, you can look at it and tell it was antique because it was old to me, you know.
mhm.
And it wasn't torn up or anything like that. It just wasn't modern. You know, back in those days, they had the black lacquer with the gold and the cats on it and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
this is
I
stuff
wanted
that
some
you
new
wanted.
stuff, you know.
Mhm.
And
But
so, but
but
yeah,
you
and
never thought
I
about
didn't value that. I
yeah.
didn't value that.
But you never thought about the fact that you could have took the antique furniture and went and just renewed it, and it would look like the other furniture.
Yeah, yeah. Wish
See,
I had
see,
it today.
yeah,
You know.
we never thought about that we could do that, because if we had those trays that I was talking about, we would have known
Mm-hmm.
how to make old things new. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Uh, the interesting part about it is now if you look at other cultures, if you look at the Hispanic culture, the Asian culture, and all of these cultures, they took something from our culture and started to use it, and we no longer use it anymore. If you look at Hispanic cultures, and if it comes to a point of somebody needing a helping hand, they'll take that family into their houses, let
Oh
that family
yeah.
stay with them until they're able to afford to get a house of their own. They
Yeah.
can live together, they can do things of that nature. That used to be us at one point in time in our history, but it's no longer us.
Well,
You
I
look,
love that about my Hispanic sisters and brothers because
mhm.
at the end of the day, you know, they still do it. They still help. They're still
Well,
there for you. And
they took that, they use it. It's something that works. And it is. See, we
yeah,
forget that every hand needs to be able to pull somebody up,
yeah,
because that's what it was all about. When you looked at how people got moving, look at Madam C.J. Walker. She taught others how to do what she did. She pulled people up. You look at Booker T. Washington. You look at W.E.B. Du Bois. You look at Edwin Boykins. You look at all of these people that we thought were great at one time. They pulled somebody else up. You get what I'm saying?
hmm,
We look at Martin Luther King as being the leader of the SCLC, the leader of the civil rights movement, but he was pulling other people up. Jesse Jackson, you know, all of those people, Abernathy, uh, Jordan. He was pulling people up. Andrew
yeah,
Young, you see what I'm saying? And
yeah,
Whitney Young did the same thing. And you look at Harold Johnson, and you look all of these leaders. They pulled people up, and they gave them an opportunity. And because they
right,
gave them opportunity, they got better and better. I love the story that I heard about Denzel Washington going back to his school and pulling others up along the way and making sure that they had an opportunity to be an actor or whatever their desire to be, going back and pulling people up. Bill Cosby using his money to make sure that HBCUs gave scholarships to people that made them deserve it to be elevated so that they might have an opportunity to pull others up along the way. When you hear about things like that, you get excited because you understand that that's a part of our history. We saw a
right,
movie, oh man, it's been a while, maybe 10, 11 years ago, called Pay It Forward. The concept is I'm going to do something for you, And I don't want anything for it. I just want you to do something for
for
somebody else.
someone else. Yeah.
That
And I'm a
concept,
firm believer of that too,
yeah,
because
that
you know,
concept didn't start with them. That concept started, if you go back to history, it was improved within the history of the culture. If I do something for you, we bartered and traded. You see what I'm saying? If I
mhm,
did something for you, the only payback I really need from you is to do it for somebody else when they're in time of need. Pay it forward.
right.
Do it that way that we might be able to help each other.
Yeah.
In this day
And
and time, in this world and time, when we start looking at race, which we should not be, we every last one of us should be diverse in order to celebrate each other. That's not a
yeah,
party sometimes because you have racism that steps in. And racism is not a born with thing, it is a learned thing.
right, right.
And so, if you really go back in biblical history and history, there was a point in time where they didn't talk about the color of one's skin. There was no separation talked about. They didn't classify, well, he was black or he was white or he was brown skin or he was this or he was that. They didn't talk about that. They talked about the greatness of the person. They did talk about class,
Hmm.
you know. So when you look at things and you start understanding, those things evolved through history. Those things evolved because some people didn't want other people to have the same things that they had. When we start thinking about the Klan, those were people that didn't want us to have what they had. They thought that we were less than them. They thought that we were animals to be sold. They forgot that they took us from civilizations, and because we spoke another language, they called us heathens. But we already knew how to communicate with each other. We already had the things that they were looking to have. Most of the greatest inventors were slaves that were put on plantations. We forget about the Paul Laurence Dunbar who wrote poetry, became the national laureate. We forget about uh, well, we forget about a lot of those inventors because I
Yeah.
could keep going brain by brain, and excuse me for having
But
brain
yeah,
freezes.
we're
That's
gonna have
just
to
something
we're gonna
about
have to do a part two to this because it's a
it.
lot of knowledge that's there, and that I feel like it's great being able to get it out. So, Dr. Wilson, as we wrap things up, can you let people know how they can get in touch with you or even learn where to go to get some of this knowledge?
Well, I tell you what, you can contact me. I do have a couple of email addresses that you could actually reach me at. You can reach me at REV as in Victor, D as in Donald, Wilson JR at AOL.com, or you can reach me at one true worship at gmail.com. Either of those, you're able to reach me, and I will contact you back if I see an email from you. You can actually do that, or you can contact us. Come by and visit us at church. We have a great service. We start at about around 10:45, and we're not there very long. We're out of there as quick as we are in there.
And then also you can catch his show. Usually I'm forwarding it on our page. And
Mm-hmm.
then also you can catch repeats of his show on SKST Radio Network and on Spotify, all the different radio stations that we're on, Spotify, Amazon Music, and all those different places. You can actually hear his sermon on those stations.
Yeah. And you catch us on YouTube.
Yeah, and catch him on YouTube. Also catch him on YouTube.
Yeah,
So,
you can catch us on
okay,
YouTube.
Dr. Wilson, well, thank you so very much for all your wealth of knowledge. I am so glad that we got this show on a board and made it happen because it was a long time coming. And
Mm-hmm.
just know I love you and I appreciate you. And for now, until next week, right here, SKST Radio. Tell them
Love you,
bye, Don.
cuz. You be
Love
blessed.
you
And you
too.
all let God lead you and guide you because you're going to have to be a wave walker in order to make it through. You all be
Yeah,
blessed.
absolutely. All right, bye.